Hello everyone friends. Today we continue our video series, and specifically today is our third video on the topic of creating a character for Roblox. And today we will be uploading our already finished model with textures into Roblox and seeing what comes out of it. The first thing we do is open our finished model in Blender. And before sending all of this to Roblox, we need to set up the materials. To do this, we transfer our finished textures, which we made in Substance, into Blender. This is very important, if something is displaying incorrectly, meaning your model doesn't look the same as it did in Substance, check whether your settings are configured correctly. It's very important to pay attention to the color space setting. Specifically, all your textures except for the color map should be set to non-color. In other words, only the base color should be set to sRGB, while everything else should be non-color. That means the normal map, metalness, and roughness should all be non-color. And then everything will display correctly. Now we move to Roblox Studio, click Import 3D, and select the file with our model. To export from Blender, I use a plugin that I talked about in previous videos. You can re-watch them. I'll also leave a link in the description. There, everything is properly skinned for me. We wait for it to load. And here is our model in Roblox. The textures have loaded. Now let's check once again to make sure that the texture really does change its color, and see how it looks when we try it out with a few different colors. Next, we go to Avatar Setup, where we specifically indicate and clearly specify that our body is indeed the body in question, and I also make sure to check the box for Improve Facial Cage just to be thorough. Now we just wait for Avatar Setup to create the finished rig for us. And now our rig is ready. We can test it with animations. To see if everything is working correctly. And make sure nothing is falling apart. There are often problems if you import a character along with something else, like buying clothes with some accessories, for example. Sometimes Avatar Setup has issues with this, and the character might display incorrectly, but most of the time everything works great. I check different clothes to see how they fit. Hair. Well, I check the gloves. And obviously the gloves don't fit properly. If you look at our cages, which I am currently carefully editing and making adjustments to, you can notice that no amount of editing can fix the situation. In principle, you don't even have to try. Because, unlike a cage, our gloves have fingers. Accordingly, we are faced with the task of changing the cage so that the gloves fit the character. First of all, we need to figure out how we are going to do this. To do this, we need to take our base mesh and use the save and export function. Select export, like GLTF. We basically only need cages. Remove the texture and the discount. Save it. And now we can move on to Blender. And here we are in Blender. We've imported our model. Let's see what we have here. Here we have the cages and the mesh itself. Basically everything looks good. The only parts that we are interested in specifically in this case are the hand and the forearm, because we'll be making the gloves based on them. First, it's worth explaining why the avatar's set up. I didn't actually make them myself. For this, we need to refer to the standard Roblox mannequin. And here, if we look at the hands, we see that there are no fingers. It's just a mitten. And on the Eevee cage, you can also see that it's just a mitten divided into some parts. There's absolutely no way that your mesh, the glove, will wrap around the future fingers simply because there's a cage there. Basically, in this example with our little monkey, you can also see that the cage made by Tarsetup looks the same, just a mitten. That's why we move on to the improved version of the mannequin. This is the version we made specifically for our place because we really wanted the characters to have cool gloves and for the armor to look complete, so we created our own cage. Here you can see that we made both the mesh itself and a new unique UV map. And here you can see both the left and right hand. So that each finger has its own cage, so the mesh wraps around each finger individually. So what do we need to do next? We need the cage we got from the art staff, the one with mittens, to become a cage with hands. To do this, we need to take our template with our hands, making sure we have it ready and accessible. Next, we simply select this specific part of the template that we want to work on, carefully edit it to fit our needs, and then replace it directly in Roblox Studio. By following these steps, we ensure that the changes are made correctly and that the updated template is now part of our Roblox Studio project. Everything else can be deleted. We don't need it. Basically, it will only get in our way. You can even delete the body. Why is accuracy and precision important here? We exported the entire cage, not just the mesh of this part, for a reason. Why did we export it at all? We exported it primarily to see what the cage looks like here, because with cages it's very important that all the parts fit together correctly. That's why our future cage, the hands, I'm talking specifically about this part, the hand, it should fit properly with this part. So look here, the vertices are stacked on top of each other. That is, they're all together, all at the same point. Our future cage must be exactly the same, otherwise it won't work correctly. So these points, they all need to lie on this semicircle, or rather, on this circle. This is very important. For this, we export the overrun. And the hands, so that everything lines up when we import it all back into Roblox. Now I just take our little standard cage and move it right over here briefly so that everything fits correctly. Basically, we can hide this part. We only need the connection point. So now we just insert it and adjust it as precisely as possible. We need each of our fingers to be in the correct cage. So the pinky goes here and here, just like with regular cages, only we're working with our unique one. Basically, I can recommend, just like in the previous video, not to hesitate to use the sculpting tab. It really helps a lot to set the general shape so you don't have to sit there and tweak every single polygon in In principle, you can make some minor edits here if necessary, and you can also go over there as well. And again, do not hesitate to use proportional editing whenever you feel it is appropriate. This way, you can adjust the whole shape and not be shy about it. When exporting any model from Roblox, it automatically triangulates all the meshes. That's why, for convenience, I convert them back to quads, so I can clearly see and identify which points I am able to connect together. All of this is done to create a nice seam, and we don't need the upper part. I only use the lower vertex to snap the bottom part to it. We delete the unnecessary part, and our left hand is ready. Next, we hide everything unnecessary and again use the plugin I already mentioned, so that with just one button we can send it all to Roblox. And then the point is in Roblox Studio. We use 3D import to bring in the brush. We don't change any settings, just click the import button. Next, we take the mesh of our hand, copy the mesh ID, go to the monkey, then to your character, and after that, go to the left-hand section. Once you are there, in the left-hand wrap target section, you can update the cage mesh ID to the one that we just made by hand. I've put on the gloves so we can check our result. Everything fits perfectly. Now let's move on to the right hand. I've already made its cage off camera. Copy the link and paste it into the right hand. Do the same in the right hand's wrap target. Just replace the link with ours. Basically everything fits fine. The only thing I noticed is that one finger is sticking out a little bit. That's not a problem. We can tweak it a bit right in Roblox, since we already have the cage with the fingers. We go into cage editing inside the avatar setup and adjust the cage a little where it goes through the hand. It's not a big deal, there's always a reset button. Don't be afraid, give it a try. It's important to remember that things don't always work out on the first try. Even for me, when I was recording this video, a couple of times the rig and the mesh glitched out and I had to redo everything from scratch. So if something doesn't work out for you, don't hesitate to ask questions in the comments, under my posts on Telegram, or even in Discord. We all started somewhere, so don't be afraid to ask questions and be curious together. With our large and strong UGC creator community, we can come together and start making truly awesome work. Basically, from the animations and the examples of different armors, you can see that everything works perfectly. The only thing is, maybe not all the fingers look neat enough, but that's all in your hands. It's all within your power. You can refine all of this more delicately in Blender. This can always be improved. The main thing is that everything works. Let's check it one more time. I usually put the gloves into the jacket or coat slot, just to keep them organized and easy to find later. And here I decided to tweak the thumb a little because it seemed too big to me. I looked up and read about how cage editing works, and you can conclude that it will just override it. It's not that it overwrites, it creates new cages every time you edit the old one. So when you edit something here, the cage ID automatically changes to a new one. In other words, every time you edit something, it creates a new cage ID. But there's also a reset button here, so don't worry, you can always go back. Basically, at this point, we can wrap up the video. In the next video, we'll be discussing clothing and character armor. You may have noticed that I added a tail and eyebrows. I added them using the method I already made a video about, layered clothing. I imported the eyebrows together with the mannequin so that they would fit well. And then I simply transferred them back onto the monkey. Basically our race is ready, you can already play as it, and it can be added to the game, which is exactly what will be done. Any armor looks great on it, including gloves, and I'm happy with the result. Thank you very much for watching, subscribe and leave your comments. See you in the next video.